a member of Trinity's Congregation Council, as am I. And sometimes it gets a little bit confusing when somebody says Rob and G. So we go by Rob G and Rob U. Rob G came to the area first at ONC, correct?
Yep.
And is now in charge of marketing and development for Serenity Hospice and Home. Rob's going to talk to us about hospice and palliative care.
Thank you all. It's good to be here. How many of you have had someone close to you that has been served by hospice? Okay, so quite a few of us. So I'm going to be talking obviously a lot about Serenity because that's what I'm obviously most familiar with, but to know that especially in hospice care, if you are receiving payments from Medicare or Medicaid, there are a lot of standards. So a lot of what applies to Serenity will apply to a lot of other places. The best thing, well, two tips or recommendations before I get too deep into it, is one, if the lunch hour is getting close and you need food later, Lions is doing their pork chops, so just to point back. And more
Super value parking
lot in Oregon. Second, more appropriate to hospice, but really beyond hospice is, and you might want to write this down, cms.gov. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services website. You can compare, if you type into a search cms.gov, don't be going to somewhere else, don't be scammed, cms.gov and compare, you're going to find their comparison part of their website. And you can compare hospitals, clinics, doctors, nursing homes, and hospices as well. And so, and obviously Serenity has a great reputation in this area. There's a lot of hospice organizations that serve Oldham County, Winnebago, etc. But it is really great to compare. So, knowledge is good. And so to compare between the 2 or 3 different places, I would highly recommend that. And it's not just hospice, again, it's any kind of different types of healthcare organizations is really, really helpful. So we do recommend doing that. So do that and you'll be far ahead. So I have on the tables 2 different things, a packet of information about Serenity services, but then what I'm going to start with is palliative and hospice care. It's this little half-sheet piece of paper. And probably most of you have heard, as you raised your hands, you've heard about hospice. There's probably a lot of you that may have heard the word palliative, but you're not really sure what palliative care is. And that's understandable. As we talk about hospice and palliative care, we oftentimes are talking about obviously end-of-life care. Just like everything we're talking about today, it's good to have these conversations. Again, reacting to them when it's gone too far, you can make some maybe not the greatest decisions. And so palliative and hospice care, as you can see from this, there's some overlapping between the two. And it gets confusing because palliative, there's not as many regulations and things that have to be followed that hospice does. So, for example, in some hospitals, palliative may mean hospice. That can get confusing. What one organization provides for palliative may be very different than another. Hospice, there's a standard that you have to be at. You can go beyond that standard, you can fall below that standard, and that's why you can see, again, I'm the marketing person, so you see that we're 5-star, and we're a nonprofit. Those are kind of things that the CMS website would be able to share with you. So, so the commonalities, as you can see from that, are really what we're here to do is to optimize the comfort. It's about comfort care. It's about reducing pain. It's about meeting the goals that you have, whether it's palliative or whether it's hospice. And as you can see, provide emotional and spiritual support and relieve the symptoms. There's 2 main differences between palliative and hospice. Hospice patients have been diagnosed with 6 months or less to live. That doesn't mean, that can mean anything. So we have hospice patients that have been diagnosed with 6 months or less to live and are in hospice care for a year or 2 years. That can happen. Of course, we also know that you can be diagnosed with a month left to live and you may only live for 2 weeks. Everybody is going to be different. Every patient is different. But in hospice care, you have you've been diagnosed with 6 months or less to live, and then you have, if you're going to use hospice, you have to stop seeking treatments. So if you have a cancer diagnosis, you're no longer seeking chemotherapy or radiation, whatever those treatments are, you're now in hospice care, where we're really focused on. So this is the thing, the mythology of I think in part, is that once you go into hospice care, that's it. You're dying. And of course, there's some truth to that, right? You're in hospice care, you've been diagnosed with 6 months or less to live. But the focus in a really good hospice is really on life, not on death. What are your goals? And that's both with palliative and with hospice. You're still alive, and we still want to support you and advocate for you. That is the best life that we can find for you. Palliative care, the difference is you can still seek treatment. Palliative care, you do not have to give up treatment. We are your advocates to work with your specialists, with your other doctors, your other care that you're receiving. And you can continue to receive that care and treatment for as long as you want. Oftentimes palliative might precede, usually does precede hospice. So usually when people go into hospice, palliative care, they may become hospice patients. The nice thing about palliative care and hospice care is that we go where you are. So you're not coming to us, and that's one of the main reasons for people to consider palliative care as early as possible. If you're dealing with a serious illness, you're probably, when you start finding that you're ending up in the hospital more often, or you're having a lot of doctor's appointments, this can kind of cut back on that with palliative because we come to you. We have nurse practitioners that are part of our staff, and in other palliatives it might be different types. It might be a physician and nurse practitioners. We come to you. So if that's a nursing home, then we come to the nursing home. If you are in your own home, we come to your own home. One of the things I'll talk about the Serenity Home a little bit later, but which most of us probably drive by on a regular basis. Most of our patients never see the Serenity Home. So it's not, we are coming to where you are, not the other way around. So we're really we're on call, and we're there for you to come to you, which can be a huge blessing if you are dealing with a serious illness, especially with palliative care. When you're still seeking treatments, we're there to help you because there's a lot of issues that come along with being treated for a serious illness. And we can help you with that pain. We can help you with, again, with reducing the stress. The other thing with palliative and hospice, which sometimes, I actually think most of the time is different than other healthcare, is that we are caring for more than just the patient. We're also caring for the family. In almost all cases with palliative, and many of you know this, and with hospice, there's a caregiver. And there's somebody probably living with that patient that is providing a lot of care. Some of you may be in that boat today, some of you may have been in that situation. And so we're not just there for the patient, we're also there for the whole family, which is really important. Which a lot of times, like if you have a specialist or even just a primary care, who are they meeting with? Typically you as the patient. And they're not necessarily spending a lot of time with the family and how can we manage this serious illness. So palliative care is a great option to consider, especially for people who maybe hospice is just emotionally you're not ready for it. You're just not there to accept it. So palliative can be an easy route to still receiving the care that you need, but not it being the label of hospice. And again, the more we talk about these kinds of things, the less it's something that we just don't want to do. So.
And is it something that the caregiver says, well, I want my loved one to, I mean, how do you make that leap to say I want palliative care?
That is a really good question. Oftentimes what we find that a lot of our healthcare providers don't really like to talk about palliative or hospice care. And that's one of the biggest fights that it's not a fight, but it is. To really help Dr. Plesh is great, right? Because he works in he has three different hats, and so he sees all of it. Most doctors are not in that situation. So there may be financial advantages for them not to support it, but that's why it's important for you to hear this, because you need to advocate with your primary care or your specialist that, hey, what do you think about some palliative care? You can always just come talk to whether it's us or whether it's someone else, and say, well, here's my situation. Do you think that this would help? And we would be honest with you to say, well, maybe you're not ready for it yet, or there's not going to be a lot of advantage, or we can help you a lot. And then here's how we can help you and what your situation is. That's a really good question. Yeah.
How do you decide
like if somebody ends up in the home down there,
Mhm.
I mean, is there certain reasons that they end up down there instead of staying at home, or, and then how many beds do you have down there?
Good question. I did not plan to. Yeah, so the home, so just to give you an idea, Serenity serves around about 100 patients a month. We've grown in the last few years. We've gone from about 70-ish to about 100. That's just the hospice side. Palliative is about 70 patients a month. CMS will tell you that. So that's another reason to go to that site. So you might find some local hospices that are serving 30 patients a month. You see others that are serving hundreds of patients a month.
So when you say serving though, you don't mean in Serenity House?
No, right.
You mean-
There's 8 beds in Serenity Home. So when you drive by that, there's, yeah, like I said, most of our patients will never see the inside of Serenity Home. They want to stay in their own home. They're maybe in a nursing home or other skilled nursing facility. The reason for Serenity Home, and it was built in 2009, and there are not very many. In Northern Illinois, and when I say Northern Illinois, I'm talking not Chicagoland, I'm talking outside of Chicagoland. There's only two hospice homes. We are abundantly blessed in this area. You have Serenity Home right in our backyard. Rock River Hospice would be the other nonprofit that has a home. They have an 8-bed facility. It's also very nice. Serenity Home is an 8-bed. So the reason why for-profits almost never have a hospice home is that it's expensive. If you drive by, you go to Sterling, you go to Dixon, and you come back really late at night, there's staff inside that building. 24/7 there are staff. And most places don't want to build the building, they don't want to have to maintain the building. It's not cost effective for them to make money if you're a for-profit. So we actually have a lot of area hospices that will refer to Serenity Home if it's needed. So the question is, why Serenity Home? Why did we feel it was important, and what is the benefit? And there's 2 reasons why Serenity Home is important. One is respite care. And respite care could be for the patient. The patient is at home. There's something that's not stable. So they come in, usually you can come in, and I probably should have said earlier, hospice care is covered by Medicare, Medicaid, and private insurance. And respite care is usually covered as well. So you can come in for up to 5 nights and be at Serenity Home to be stabilized. And I will extend this to all of you. If you want a tour of Serenity Home, by all means, you'll see me at church. Come talk to me. You have contact information down here. You can call. Just come talk to me and I will give you a tour. It is a beautiful place. It was built home-like. It's not institutional. There's no numbers on the doors. It's not patients in room 1, patients in room 2. The rooms have names: hope, love, mercy, faith. So, and they're all private rooms. So that's one reason, is respite care. Also respite care for caregivers. So we've had patients who've come in, they may be only there for a couple of nights, and that's because the caregiver is going to a wedding, they're going on vacation, or sometimes they stay. So we have alcoves in every room with a Murphy bed that pulls down. We have laundry facilities, we have a family bathroom that has a shower, it's fully equipped, the towels. You can stay as long as you want. There are no set hours. You can come. So we've had people come in for respite care, but they stay with, say, their spouse. And you might go, well, why would you do that? Well, because, and this is one that's kind of pulls at heartstrings. When you're a caregiver, and some of you know this, it's 24/7 care. But to be in the home, then we take over that care, and you can be the spouse. So it's a really beautiful opportunity for respite care, just to come in for up to 5 nights. Again, sometimes it's just a few nights, whatever's working for them. So 8 beds, we usually keep one room open just for any emergency. I think today, we were at 5 patients, I think. When it was first opened, it took years before we had really hardly any patients. A lot of the rooms were being used as offices, and it's just grown. So again, not very many hospice homes are even in Northern Illinois for even patients. So the other reason is the care has become now needed at 24/7 care. So it's now become inpatient, where that person, the caregiver at home, cannot provide that care level anymore. Typically when it gets to that point and you stay in the home, that's out of pocket. So there may be some private insurance that may pay for part of it, but generally that's out of pocket. Because it is round the clock care, and we do usually have more than a few staff that are there to help with care in the home. So yeah, it's a good question. And you can see on the back side of that first page is a little bit about the Serenity Home in particular, some pictures. I think people don't realize there's a lot of companies and industries in this area that we have no idea how big they are and what scope they have. And Serenity is one of those that, when I was working at LMC, I'm the only one. I feel like I straddle two different worlds sometimes, because it's like the Serenity folks don't know the world of nature that is just literally one trail away. And I never realized until I came that there's 50, 60 staff, and we serve 9 counties in Illinois. So Boone, you're going to test me now. Boone, it's on here, but I'm going to test myself. So Boone, Winnebago, Stevenson, Carroll County, Ogle County, DeKalb County, Whiteside County, Lee County, and then oddly enough, just 2 towns in Bureau County, Walnut and Ohio. That's a long story. It has to do with KSB, but and every hospice has its locations they're licensed to serve in. So there's some in the Chicagoland area that don't reach out, to the suburbs, for example, and we don't go into the suburbs. There's a lot of overlap though between, and so we have staff that will go all the way to Savannah. We have patients in DeKalb. Primarily, our biggest number are Winnebago, Ogle, and Lee, some might say.
And when this hospice started, it was just Ogle County.
Yeah.
And we started with 2 patients.
Yeah. Isn't
Now
that
we have
amazing?
100.
Yeah.
Rob, can you
Yeah.
give us some examples of cases that are experiencing the palliative care? I mean, you're not going to do it for a broken arm, but yeah, and you're probably not going to do it for some stage 4 cancer. But
It can be stage 4 cancer because maybe again they're not really willing to do hospice at that point. They probably should. We do say this a lot, that patients usually wait too long. So my uncle is a good example. He was not served by Serenity, but he died in December. He lived in the Des Moines area, suburbs of Des Moines, and he was battling cancer, lung cancer, for a couple of years. He got to early November and was told that the cancer wasn't going to be cured, but he was on medications to prolong his life. Okay, but when he got to early November, he was told, we now are looking at you, and you probably have 2 weeks. So he probably, in all honesty, he probably would have benefited from palliative or hospice months before. He was living in a lot of pain. I don't think he ever had I don't remember hearing of any emergency visits, but a lot of doctor, a lot of treatment that was going on. And he went into hospice in early November. Again, the prediction was from his doctors that he would live to just about Thanksgiving. He got into hospice and he lived about a month before Christmas. So he lived actually 2 or 3 weeks longer than they thought he would. And that is the thing, Dr. Plesha has said this a lot to us as staff, that the studies are showing that the sooner you get into hospice, you actually live longer, which doesn't sound right. But because the stress on the body is so much relieved, that you actually end up living longer. So he actually, like I said, my uncle lived longer. He's just one case, but he was able now to have people come in to the home, to his house. They were able to help my aunt and my cousins. One of the things he loved, and we provided as well, he was also served by a much bigger nonprofit hospice that serves most of Iowa and actually does overlap Quad Cities and even into Serenity. I think it was Unity Point Hospice that they had. He loved massage therapy. That's the reason why my marketing development is to help with the development side, which things like massage therapy, music therapy, aromatherapy, pet therapy are not covered by Medicare and Medicaid. They're not covered by private insurance, and so that's why the foundation exists for Serenity, is to help with that. So in his case, he probably should have gone. He reported that hospice was one of the best decisions because the pain was much better handled. He was able to live his last several weeks as maybe not pain-free, but relatively pain-free, and everybody could focus on the life that he had instead of just continuing the pain that he was living in. So that's my uncle's story, and again, that could apply to both hospice or palliative. You know, what is it that you're dealing with, and what do you want? And again, that's why we talk about these things now, is to think about that. So we, you know, if human beings, we like to survive, we like to fight, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So it's a personal decision when it comes to palliative care or hospice care. But to think about it now is much better than, you know, again, we have patients that go into hospice care and they're in hospice care for 2 days. They didn't benefit from it. One of the things that and Dr. Plush is really good about this, and as our nurse practitioners are as well, and really all of our staff, is to ask, what are your goals? What are your goals? Usually most of our doctors is just to cure whatever it is, but our task is to say, again, it's focused on life. So what do you want to do? Well, I want to go on that last vacation to the Caribbean. I want to have the experience to be able to be at my granddaughter's wedding. Or it may just be, for most of our patients, it's just, I want to stop this pain. I really want to have I don't want to have this pain so that I can continue to read the books that I really want to read, or listen to the music that I really want. Sometimes it's as simple as that we all take, you know, right? If your health is great, we take these things well for granted. But then we get into hospice, it's just so important for what are those goals. And so Dr. Plusha will work with that patient to say, well, what are your goals? What is it that you want to accomplish with what time we do have left? So it's one of the very big joys of working for Serenity. A lot of people say, oh my gosh, you work for a hospice, that must be horrible. Nope. Right, Jen?
Most wonderful job I ever had.
So, yeah, it's to really help people, and in very profound ways. So, what else do I need to tell you about?
So with serving that many people,
Yeah.
I would think the house would be packed. So how do you decide that someone can be accepted into the house or is able to be there?
There's criteria that they will go through.
Like a caregiver or like a healthcare provider. Is that part of the?
Yeah. I mean,
they make decisions. Well, I don't want to say make decisions.
Dr. Plusha will be part of that decision making. The caregiver, what can the caregiver do? What stage of hospice are they at? You know, are they needing so much care because they're transitioning? They're at a point where death is pretty close. That's another factor as well. And again, respite care is a totally different. You know, that'd be a totally different scenario.
And there's many of these 100 patients in their nursing homes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they do have. Sometimes we like to think our nursing homes are around the clock care for patients, but we all know that that's not always the case either. So, but yeah, a lot of them are in skilled nursing facilities, and so they do have that extra care. So that's another factor of not necessarily needing Serenity Home. Yeah. Yeah.
So if a person has dementia, will they deteriorate more rapidly at home or in a setting with 24-hour care? And I know there's no right answer,
Yeah.
and it's
Jan, it's so personal. It has so many different factors. It kind of depends on what your support at home is
And
like,
your needs.
and your needs as a caregiver, needs of the patient. You know, and the you know, it's so tough with dementia too, because just that change of location could be bad. In other cases, it could be good because there is so much support So it really is personal, so,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's what our job is to work with families to determine what is the best, what is the best place, and if it's, or another facility, if that's the case. Serenity's been around 40 years, we celebrated we're in 41. Serenity Home was built in 2009. Yes, it was originally LMC farmland. So it's kind of, I didn't really leave LMC. I'm still there.
Little old men's club.
What questions do you have?
You said respite care is
Yeah.
covered by Medicare and Medicaid.
Yeah.
Like, what qualifies as respite care? Is it like a one and done, or is it something that can be utilized more than once?
I think you can utilize it more than once, yeah.
And then who makes the determination, or what are the qualifying factors for that? If it's like a short term?
Again, Medicare, Medicaid would make that, are gonna approve that, or private insurance will approve that. Again, it could just be that, in many cases, it's just that you request it and it's because you're going on vacation or because you just need some time. And then longer term, that would be working with Medicare, Medicaid, and private insurance as to what their qualifications are.
And if it's paid out of pocket, you mentioned something, it's like out there.
Yeah, if
Is
it
there
becomes
any-
inpatient care, so an extended, we've had patients that have been there for months, that have lived in Serenity Home for months. That's typically out of pocket. The last page in this kind of gives kind of an overview. And again, this is kind of where the differences with Serenity and maybe other places might be a little different. And on the far left, Serenity Shed, we have a bereavement center with Medicare, Medicaid. It is required to have grief services. But we've gone above that by actually having a place in downtown Oregon to help with grief support groups. We've got a workshop in the Serenity Shed. It's right across from Conover. It's the bottom part of Spectrum Data, just up the street from Village Bakery. And so the staff there are involved in all kinds of different grief opportunities. We all have to serve families for 13 months after a death. So that's a requirement. But we really felt like we needed a separate place than the Serenity Home, because sometimes if you've died in the Serenity Home, you may not want to come back to Serenity. If somebody has died, your loved one has died there, you may not want to come back there. And so that's why it was important for us to have that Serenity Shed. And that is open. It is partly funded by 708 Fund, which is a county funds. So it is open to anybody in Ogle County. So pass that along. If someone has died, if they weren't a Serenity patient, Serenity Shed is available to help with grief support. And we have a number of different groups. There's crafting on Tuesdays, and there's also furniture upcycling that they do as well. So a lot of different things. Integrative therapies. Again, not every hospice has that. And again, disclosure and transparency. Our music therapist that we contract with is Kay Ray Knowles, our member, who owns Safe and Sound Music Therapy, and so that can really be profound in those types of I call them ministries, but these integrative therapies. They are, I know, totally. So one example of music therapy in K-Ray is we have the equipment that she figured out how to get to work. If you know K-Ray, you're like not surprised. We can actually record a patient's heartbeat, and then she can put that into a song that was special to the family, special to the patient. We had a grandparent, they were in the home, brought in their daughter and grandson came in, and she recorded the heartbeat, and they said, well, what song, what's your favorite song? And they picked Baby Shark. And now this family will have this song. She literally, it is literally as you listen to the song, that heartbeat is underneath that Baby Shark song. Not everybody picks Baby Shark, but whatever works. So, and again, those aren't covered. We aren't reimbursed for those things, and we don't charge for them. And so that's why we do our fundraising. Plug for garden luncheon coming up next weekend.
available?
To raise money for these kinds of integrative therapies. Angel Treasures is another part. That's again how we raise money. Our Mount Morris shop that we absolutely love, our Dixon and as well as our Winnebago shop as well, to help raise money to help patients that can't afford, especially like things like Serenity Home Care in the home. And as I said that, Serenity Home, there is actually a Serenity Home Healthcare in Rockford, and so things can get sometimes confusing. There's also a Sanctuary Hospice, so sometimes the names get a little confused. So don't confuse us. We're standalone, headquartered in Oregon. So there isn't another. But there was at one point the Farm Bureau building was where Ogle County Hospice started. There was also an office in Rochelle for a while, and then Serenity Home was built. There you go. The backside, the requirement of hospice is to have volunteers, and so we have thousands and thousands of hours of volunteers helping in all kinds of things, from Serenity Shed to sitting with patients. Patient is near death and there's no family member, or family member is not available. We make a point of either staff or volunteers to come in and sit with that patient. We don't want anyone to die alone, ever. So our volunteers do all kinds of stuff. Again, fundraisers and events that I kind of touched on. And then we do a lot of work. We're also proud to be level 5. We honor veterans. We have a very extensive veteran program to really honor them with pinnings and to do a lot of different things, especially to honor our veterans. And again, We Honor Veterans is an actual hospice program that's across the country, and some of the other hospices are in it, maybe not quite at the same level. So Serenity really tries to go above and beyond. Keeps me on my toes. Do a lot of good things. Again, if you want a tour, just let me know. We can schedule that. Come visit. I think you'll be surprised at what we have here in our backyard. Other questions? Yes.
Just an observation, Rob. One of the secondary financial impacts that we see all the time is adult children having to make decisions about backing off of their own work or even quitting a job in some cases.
Yeah.
If there's either geographic, we can't be there on 5 minutes notice. So it's really important, again, to talk to your people and start thinking about that. And the West has a really unhealthy relationship with death.
Yeah.
I think one of the best things that you could do if you're thinking about it, or if you think this may be in your future, would be to start volunteering and just go see it. It is, to me, one of the highest callings, the people that work there and the volunteers that do that stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a good point. And that is a difference too with hospice care, is that it is a team approach. So we have, again, as I mentioned, we have a doctor, we have nurse practitioners, we also have social workers that are working with you and the family, where we have chaplains, and again, integrative therapy. So it's a real team approach, which I think helps with that. And to have those conversations. The other thing that I've learned at being at Serenity is and we've mentioned POA, power of attorney. You can have two different kind of power of attorneys. You can have financial power of attorney. You also have the medical health side of power of attorney. They can be two separate people. Something to consider and to know about as well. I always just thought there was one, but we now have a new CEO who has an attorney background, and so she reminds us of all the attorney parts of things as well. All right. Let me know if you want to get a tour, and I will set that up for you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.